It's Dee on the spot.
Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to my guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone out there to please like and subscribe down below if you appreciate this content. We have Ross Winchel on the show. He's a part of Merch Kitchen. He's coming to us all the way live from Nashville. Ross, great to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks a lot, Ryan.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Absolutely. So what is Merch Kitchen? Could you give us a little bit of backstory of what it is and how it came to be?
So Merch Kitchen is my screen printing company that I own, run. I started, it was like 2011 is when I started it, and I was just working some warehouse job, and wasn't really sure what I was doing with my life or what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to play music, and I had to quit a few little jobs like along the way to go on tours and stuff like that, and I was just working a 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift, and just thinking about other stuff I could do. And then I was it was actually the Hot Topic warehouse in Laverne, Tennessee, which is pretty close to where I'm at, but just watching all these t-shirts go into boxes and thinking, there's money here, and just thinking that I could make something out of that. And just playing in independent bands and stuff, I realized how, difficult it was maybe for independent bands to get merch at a decent price, at small quantities. So I kind of just figured it out from there, and I don't know, just figured it out. I mean, it started small, and I've been doing it a long time now, and it's still not huge, but it's enough for what I'm doing.
Yeah. So how did you come up with the name Merch Kitchen? Is there a story behind that, or did you just think it was a cool name?
Not really. I'm not good at coming up with names. I just thought of it one day and went with that, and it's just what I called it.
So do you remember your first client? We love hearing like first stories, like first shows, first client. Who was your first client?
Yeah, it's I don't know if they're still a band anymore, but it's a band called Symbiosis. Mm-hmm. I don't remember exactly what they sounded like or anything, but I set up a website and everything, and like had an order form on there, and then was checking it every day. I don't know how many days it was up before I finally actually got an order, but I just saw the email, and it was this band and people that I did not know who they were, and that was a really cool feeling to just see it just suddenly work. And it was like 50 shirts or something like that, and didn't tell them they were the first order I've ever had, but yeah, that's what it was. And then orders just slowly kept trickling in, and after a few months I was able to quit my job and just do this full time, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
So do bands sometimes, do they always have to send you the design of what they want the t-shirt to look like, or do they sometimes send you ideas and say, hey, we want something that kind of looks like this printed in this color, or do they mainly just give you like basically, oh, we just want this amount?
Most of the time it's they already have the design. I'm not much of an artist. I'm better at like the technical application, and like send me what you want it to look like, and I'll make sure it looks like that on the shirt. But just doing this for so long, I know a lot of artists now. So usually if a band doesn't have something already, I can either, whip up something myself if it's simple, or either just forward them to one of my many design or illustration friends, and they can do it. So it's a cool little network that I have going with them. So usually, whatever the circumstance is, we can take care of them.
Have you hired any other employees other than you since your business has been slowly taking off?
Well, I've gone through different periods of thinking, maybe I should expand, but I sort of I like the position I'm in now. It affords me a lot of freedom. Like I don't have to worry about somebody else relying on me for a steady paycheck. And I mean, to answer your question, I do bring in people every now and then just to help out, but that's usually just like a daily basis kind of thing. Like I haven't hired anybody full time or even part time, just as needed kind of thing.
What's been your biggest order that you've ever had to ship?
Man, I don't know. I just got done with, well, I'm kind of midway through a big one. There's a band that's some friends of mine from here called Lost Dog Street Band. It's like country western stuff. And I've been doing their stuff for a few years now, and they've really started to take off. So I'm kind of, they just left for a tour, and I think it was, I don't remember exactly how many shirts, but it was quite a few. I loaded up their van, and then they've got another order that they're going to need shipped to them. So I'm going to be working on that here pretty soon. So it'll be quite a bit. But I mean, to answer your question, I don't really know exactly, but I mean that's pretty big.
Well, one of the things that I realized, like, I looked at a few merch sites myself just to kind of see, like, what bands were doing when I was starting to talk to bands and kind of just so I could understand them more. But, yeah, there are a lot of places where they don't, unless it's, like, at least 100 T-shirts, they don't really offer anything. What is the lowest amount of shirts that you have available that you would let someone buy from you?
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, a lot of bigger shops are geared toward like bigger orders, and they just it doesn't make sense for them to do orders less than 72 or 100 or 48 or whatever. But I don't really have a minimum. I mean, usually like I've done orders for like 1 or 2 shirts. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because with the setup costs and everything, like it ends up costing the customer like more. So I mean, I usually tell people at least 12, and even then it's kind of, once everything's averaged in, it's still a little bit higher. But if that's all you need, then that's all you need. So as long as it makes sense for both of us, like I'm willing to work with people if they need 6 shirts or whatever. We'll try to figure it out and help them out.
Wow, what would you say, how long does it take when from email to completion? What is your average amount of time that it takes to get the orders complete?
Well, I try to stick to a 2-week turnaround, which is relatively standard. I mean, it's just kind of depends on the shop, but I try to stick to 2 weeks. I'm pretty backed up right now, so it's closer to 3 weeks or so. But rush services are available. I just did one the other day that was a 1-day turnaround, and it cost extra, but that's essentially just paying me overtime to work more than I would have that day. And so I mean, usually about 2 weeks. If you've got a big show or you're leaving for tour or something, I always tell people to just let me know. I'll try to accommodate if possible, but at the same time, got to be a little bit reasonable with your expectations as well and plan ahead, which is harder for some people than others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I realized when I started this podcast is that since I do all the things for the podcast, it kind of is on my mind at all times, even when I'm not doing it. Have you found that to be the case with your business? And if so, what are some ways that you do in order to sort of be able to separate that work-life balance? Oh,
yeah. I mean, definitely in the beginning, it was really hard to manage that. I've been doing it. It's been about 8 years now that I've been, It's been about 8 years now. I don't really know exactly how, other than just, through time, I've figured out how to manage my time better and separate that. But in the beginning, I was like checking email constantly. Like, I would sometimes sleep in for a while and then print till midnight or whatever. And like nowadays, I kind of like I have it pretty good. Like I work out of my house currently. I have a basement and garage, and so a lot of times, like once I'm done working, I'll go upstairs and I won't go back downstairs until the next day. I won't check my email. I won't check anything. Everything's separate. So it is difficult to do that, but I got to the point where I was able to kind of discipline myself, and I kind of just work like a 9-to-5 deal, and then like I'm not doing business emails or anything outside of that time, with a few exceptions, but
yeah, absolutely.
It is difficult to get to that point.
When you were starting out as well, did you have any idea of what it would eventually become? Did you want to just do bands, or did you want to do all types of T-shirts? What was that about?
I guess I wasn't really sure. My only goal at the beginning was to not have a boss and be able to tour as much as I wanted to.
Yes.
And, you know, essentially that's where I'm at. That's where I got. I wasn't really sure. I knew I wanted to be like, I wanted to work with a lot of bands. I wanted to do, you know, help smaller bands. But yeah, I mean, I didn't, you know, I've done stuff for all kinds of like bigger bands than I ever expected to. I mean, bigger companies that I never would have expected to even hear about me. Like, it's been crazy. I mean, you'd be surprised, like just some of the stuff that I get just randomly in an email. It's like, oh, this is this person or this company, and it's pretty wild. I mean, I didn't expect it. No.
Yeah. Was there a certain moment when you were running the company where you all of a sudden realized, oh my God, this is like super huge? Was there like an exact moment, or was it just a progression of slowly getting bigger and bigger, where then you realized that it was getting pretty big?
I wouldn't say it's super huge even now, but
well, yeah. Well, I mean, you're able to do it full time, so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I guess when I started doing it full time, I almost like wasn't ready to. I just kind of had to push myself to quit the job and be like, okay, you know, I got to really like get this going and make it work. Otherwise, you know, otherwise I'm just going to be doing this and my other job that I don't want to be working at forever. But I mean, definitely once you, I don't know, if I get an order that's like what I said, for one of those big companies or a big band or something, I get that moment then. I'm like, wow, you know, I'm really doing something. Like people know who I am and stuff. So that's definitely a cool feeling.
How do you sometimes balance working at home as well? Because I know sometimes I can be tempted being at home to like not do work that I have to do, whether it was in college or whether it is now with podcast related stuff when I'm not doing my other job. How do you sort of balance that and make sure that you're not slacking off?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just having the discipline that comes with doing it for so long, and you know, this is what pays my mortgage. If I slack off and if I miss deadlines or whatever, like people aren't gonna come back, and then who knows what's gonna happen. I mean, it's just, you just gotta have the discipline to be able to do it and separate stuff and work when you don't want to, and you know, make, like, I'm gonna probably be working tomorrow on Saturday just because I'm so backed up, and I've got to catch up on orders and keep people happy.
So now going on to your music, what was the first band that you joined?
Well, I played in high school. I was in just a little band that we only played 2 shows, so I guess it counts, but it was called Gutter Bowl.
Oh, wow.
It was like, we pretty much just sounded like old Green Day. That's what, that's kind of what we were doing, and it was very short-lived, but it was fun. I mean, it was cool. So I did that, and then I was in a little like hardcore band called RTS in high school too, and we probably played like 10 shows or something. Like, we did almost nothing, but still, it was a lot of fun, and it was cool. And then, I mean, I've been in a ton of bands since then, but I guess the first band that I actually did something with, and like we went on tour and we put out like a little CD thing, was called Desperate Measures. It was like a little street punk band. It wasn't anything significant, but you know, it meant a lot to me at the time, and being 18 and, you know, being on tour for the first time, it was crazy. It was cool.
What is the tour life? What has been your experience like, the tour life? I mean, we have a lot of people on here, and one of the things that I can't stress the most that I found out personally before I started this podcast, I was, you know, brainwashed with all the movies that show tour life is just one huge party where it's just you just go out and party and you play all the time. It really isn't. I mean, even for the big bands, it really isn't. But for the smaller bands, at least, you're not going to make as much money. You're probably going to end up even losing money on tour. What has been your tour life experience like?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a big difference from what's perceived and how it actually is. It's especially like independent, like specifically independent punk bands, but any like independent bands, like there's not a lot of money in it. Even if you're getting paid a decent amount for shows, like gas is expensive. You know, there's food, like all these expenses. I always look at it. I never expect to actually make money. Some tours I come out with a little bit, but I always make more, working at home. So I guess the tour experience for me a lot of times has been in the past. You drive all day or 4 hours or more or about that or whatever. You go to the venue, you sit around and wait for the show to start. You play, hopefully there's a good crowd. A lot of times that isn't the case. And then, it's still the most fun that I ever have is like playing shows with my best friends. So it's totally worth it. And then, a lot of, after the show, you hope you have a place to stay, whether that's a hardwood floor at someone's dirty house or something.
Yeah.
Like, who knows? I've slept in Walmart parking lots, like on the grounds. I've been on tours where we've stayed in hotels and stuff too, though. So it really just depends. But yeah, I guess the general idea I'm getting at is, like you said, it's a little bit different than what most people think.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the places that you've been to? Have you gone all the way across the country, or has it been mainly regional stuff?
Yeah, I've done a few West Coast tours. I've been to, I think I did a count of the states. I think I've been to 45 or something like that, almost to all of them. And then
wow.
I've done a few Europe tours. But I mean, it's been cool. Through touring, like I've gotten to see like, stuff and places that like most people will never get to see, and I'm really grateful for that. So everything like negative about it, that just makes everything worth it, is being able to see new places, meet new people, experience new things. Like,
what are the European tours like? Do they differ a lot from tours over here?
I mean, yeah, yes and no. In my experience, I've been there twice. We had a record label over there that put out a few of our records, and we had good distribution through that. So we had a little bit of a fan base over there anyway, so that helped out. But in my experience, they tend to take care of bands a little bit better over there, and the shows tend to be, maybe a little bit better, just average comparisons than the U.S. shows. But I don't know, it was just surreal being over there the whole time. I mean, it's just a totally different place, and a lot of people don't leave the U.S. ever. So it was just crazy.
Yeah. So I forgot to ask this question about you business-wise, but you started, you said, 8 years ago. How has social media changed the way that you market to customers?
Well, I mean, Facebook and Instagram both existed back then, and I don't really remember. I mean, I know I had like a Facebook page and stuff. I'm not super good about doing the social media marketing. A lot of my stuff is just like, I don't really do any advertisements or anything. It's just
word of mouth, basically.
I have the website and word of mouth. Yeah, like if you do a good job, and especially like with independent bands and like the network that is already, people are always asking like, hey, where did you get your shirts printed? And if you do a good job, people are gonna send people your way. So that's the bulk of the orders I get, is like, hey, so and so told me about your company, and that's really cool to hear. I mean, it's really rewarding to hear that.
Yeah. So now going back to music, one of the big questions I like to ask artists that come on the show is performing live, kind of what that feeling is like. We have a lot of people on here describe it, that it's unlike any drug that you could ever take. Just being able to perform your music in front of people and having them appreciate it. What is that feeling like for you specifically every time you go on stage?
I mean, it's amazing, especially if it's like a really good show. I mean, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's the best feeling in the world. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it to somebody that hasn't experienced it before, but I mean, it's just, anyone that plays music knows. I mean, it's just, it's amazing. Just, especially, like I said, like, I mean, everyone that I play in bands with is a good friend of mine. So that's like, just playing music with my best friends in front of people that want to hear the music, I mean, and are, putting out good energy. Like, it's amazing.
When you perform live, would you say time seems to speed up, or does it seem to go still, or does it seem to be like a combination of both?
I don't know. I guess if anything, it maybe speeds up a little bit, but I don't really experience. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I guess it's just you don't really realize it until after it's over, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely fun in the moment, and it just depends on the show. I mean, sometimes like I played the biggest show I ever played in Europe was like this giant fest, and like that for sure was just like it felt like 5 seconds, and then it was over.
How many people were there?
A few thousand. I
Wow.
don't know exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. It was really nerve-wracking, but you know, it was a lot of fun. And yeah, if anything, like that situation, like that seemed to go by like that. And like I don't remember being on stage. I don't remember playing any of the songs. I don't remember. I'm sure we played fine, but yeah. So in that instance, yeah, I guess it would speed up.
So we ask a lot of bands that come on here as well. Do you have any pre-show traditions that you do with your bands? A lot of bands sometimes say they like to have a few shots before they go on. They like to have a few beers, or they like to stretch. Do you have any rituals or superstitions before you perform, and or do you just like to wing it when you get there?
I don't really have, not necessarily superstitions, but I mean, I didn't drink for a while, but I mean, obviously I do now. I usually, the magic number for me, I like to drink like 2 beers before we play, and that kind of gets me in the mood that I need to be in, because I have issues with nerves and stuff, and it just kind of like calms all that down. And then like I'm a drummer, so I like to do my stretches too, because a lot of the bands I play in are like pretty fast and aggressive and stuff, and it helps to be stretched out and loose. And yeah, so that with 2 beers, and I'm good to go.
I love talking to drummers. Drummers are basically, in my opinion, the most underappreciated part of the band. I mean, screw bass players. No one gives a shit about bass players. I mean, they're worthless. Let's be honest. I give bass players a hard time, but I love them to death. But being a drummer, I ask drummers this question every time. How do you find? Is there extra pressure that you ever feel, knowing that you are sort of the backbone of the band? You keep the beat down. If you do good, then the band tends to do good. Do you feel that extra added pressure, knowing that if you mess up, it could lead to the entire band just derailing? And if so, how do you deal with that extra pressure?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, nowadays I don't even know how many shows I've played now, but I mean, I definitely know what you mean, and it crosses my mind sometimes, and especially like some of the bigger shows and stuff. But you kind of just have to put that in the back of your mind and just have fun and play. I mean, really, like they say that when you're on stage, pretend you're just in the practice space, and like sometimes that's easier said than done, but I mean, really, that's all there is to it. I mean, just forget about the crowd, like just have fun. Like if you drop a stick, whatever, pick up another one, and get back on beat. Like that's all there is to it, really. Absolutely.
So when you're also performing, does it ever sometimes seem as a relief to you? I talk to a lot of drummers, and they talk about how most people in the audience don't even see them anyway. They're well hidden behind. Does that ever provide relief to you, knowing that like the audience attention isn't going to be 100% on you, as to oppose like the lead singer or the lead guitar player? Does that ever make it easier for you?
Oh yeah, for sure. But then I also like whenever I watch bands, I'm always watching the drummer, so I know there's probably people that are just watching me too. But I mean, yeah, for sure, I like being in the back. I'm not, I don't necessarily get stage fright, but like I would have a hard time being a lead singer of a band.
Yeah.
So yeah, that definitely helps to be in the back. And when I'm in the back too, and the stage lights, if there are stage lights at the venue, it's like they're in your face. You can't see the crowd anyway, so that's helpful too. Just pretend like no one's there.
All right, so now we go to our favorite part of the podcast, the 5 questions that I like to ask. And basically I'll ask you 5 questions, and we'll get your answers, and then we'll add them up, and I'll add them on to all the other answers that I've had from all the other podcast guests. And we, after a certain amount of podcasts, I haven't really decided how many. We'll add them up and then see what our most popular answers are. So now for our first question, out of all the songs that have ever been written in the history of music, what is one song that you personally wish that you would come up with yourself?
Oh man. Wish you had sent me this one before.
I don't do that because then I like to see people's genuine reactions when we get into it.
Yeah, one song, man. That's tough. Yeah, I'm blanking right now.
Oh, no worries. Take as much time as you want because I'll just edit out the space in between. Anyway.
Okay, yeah, sure. Oh, whew. Man, talk about DD on the spot. One song.
I'm happy that I finally stumped someone for this long. This is making me feel good.
Yeah. How long do people usually take on this?
Usually they take probably around 5 seconds at the most to just think of one because whenever I have like bands on here, then they kind of like just pressure each other. They're like, dude, come on, answer. But then like normalized people, they'll usually just think of the first song that pops in their head.
Yeah, see, I'm blanking. I can't think of. I'm trying to think of a Rush song that I like a lot, but
Fly By Night.
I was thinking like Spirit of the Radio, but yeah I don't know. Whew. Yeah, why don't we just go with that one? I don't know. I mean,
all right.
It's yeah, Spirit of the Radio by Rush. I don't really. I wouldn't even say that's my favorite song or anything. It's just it's just a cool song that I like by a cool band that a lot of people probably don't even realize that I listen to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So now for our second question. Out of all the artists that have ever lived or bands that have ever existed, dead or alive, doesn't matter, you can choose either one. If you could perform live on stage with any artist or band for one show, who would it be?
Like I'm in the band or one of my bands is playing with them?
You're in the band.
Man. I think it would be cool to play with Blink-182 like in the 90s when they were huge.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that would be definitely one of the choices that I'd have. So now for our third question, out of all the venues on the planet, if you could perform at any venue on the planet, where would you perform?
Killing me with these. Man, I guess Madison Square Garden is like probably the cream of the crop on that one. Yeah.
Yep, that is our second most popular answer behind Red Rocks. So
where's Red Rocks?
It's in Colorado. It's a stage that's built into like the rocks at some canyon where it seats like 8,000 people, and you can see the skylight and everything. It's basically in the Amazon. I can send you a link to it. It's absolutely breathtaking. I banned Red Rocks after the first like 20 podcasts because like 15 of the answers were like Red Rocks. I was like, okay, we got to make this a little more fair. No more Red Rocks, but. So yeah, Red Rocks is obviously going to win this probably as long as I keep, unless I do like 10,000 podcasts, then it might.
I was going to say, because I think I've played at a venue called Red Rocks, but it definitely was not that. It was a bar or something. Yeah.
All right, so now we get down to the real nitty gritty, the most popular question on this questionnaire. What is a guilty pleasure song that you enjoy that most people would not realize that you like?
Well, I don't really believe in guilty pleasures, but I just think that you like what you like. But I will say I've been listening to some Lady Gaga. Not any specific songs, but definitely Lady Gaga and Elle King while I've been working lately. So just kind of their hits. So just pop hits. That's my guilty pleasure without being a guilty pleasure.
Yep. Now, lastly, I have to say before the time, you are not killing anyone before this question. I have to say this every time because everyone gets confused. But if there was one artist or any band that you could make their entire history of music disappear from everyone's conscious, they would have never existed as musicians. Now, you wouldn't kill them. They would maybe just decide to become like a carpenter or a plumber. No, you laugh now, but I have to say this every single time because everyone's like, wait, am I killing them or whatever? I was like, no, they are just deciding not to become musicians. Their entire music gets erased. No one ever remembers that they ever had had any music, if you had that power and you could do that to one band or artist, who would it be?
Just to piss off half of the Nashville population, I'm going to say Jack White.
That is actually
that's
a good
all I'll
answer.
say about
Yep.
that.
Absolutely. So what is the name of the band that you're currently in?
Right now, I was in between kind of this whole year. I just joined a band called Bled to Submission. It's like grind, like heavy hardcore stuff.
Nice.
So I'm super excited about that. We've played 2 shows. So I'm excited to move forward and start writing with that band, and keep going with the direction that they were in. And then I'm also in a band called Option Anxiety that we've been working on for this year pretty much. We just put out an EP yesterday.
Oh,
so,
nice.
So I'm in, just kind of got started with 2 new bands, and I'm kind of excited with the direction that both of those bands are going to be doing.
So where can people find both these bands? Are both these bands on like SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube?
Bled to Submission is on, I know we're on Spotify. We also have a Bandcamp. We've got Facebook, Instagram, all the social media stuff. And then Option Anxiety, we've got a Facebook page, and then the EP's on Bandcamp, and that's the only place you can get it right now. But
nice. I'll definitely leave a link below for all that, for all those things. I mean, I'd love to have people listen to your music. I mean, obviously, being in 2 bands, how do you manage that? Also, being in 2 bands and running your own businesses, are you very time constrictive, or are you just really good at balancing your time?
I've just learned to balance it. I mean, being a drummer, we're always in demand.
Mm-hmm. They say, good drummers are so hard to come by, and the good ones are already playing for 5 different bands anyway.
Yeah, I've been in 4 or 5 bands at a time, and filling in with other bands and stuff. So it's like 2 bands is not that heavy of a workload for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's just trying to keep all the dates in my calendar, not double booking stuff, stuff like that. So yeah, just it's not as hard as you would think maybe to juggle a few, but.
So Merch Kitchen, where can people find it? What's your website? Do you have any other things besides a website that people can get in contact with you with?
Yeah, merchkitchen.com is the website. It has a lot of information on there. Contact at merchkitchen.com is email to get a hold of me. We have a Facebook, Instagram. It's all just / or at Merch Kitchen. So super easy. You can Google it. Whatever.
So I like to ask these 2 final questions before we wrap her up here. If someone were to walk up to you on the street randomly and say, hey, I'm really thinking about starting my own business, whether it be making T-shirts, whether it be, starting their own food place or any type of business, what would be the best piece of advice that you could give that person in order for them to be at least somewhat successful? I mean, to me, success is basically just being able to do what you do and not having to have a boss, like you said, and not take orders. What would be the best piece of advice you could give that person in order to achieve that?
I mean, I would definitely say, do your research. I would tell them that it's a lot of hard work, so be prepared for that. And you're going to make mistakes, but the biggest part about that is learning from the mistakes. So learn from your mistakes. That's probably the biggest piece of advice. Is once you get into it, you're going to figure stuff out by doing it the wrong way first time. So just learn and build from that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And lastly, if you could speak to your 18-year-old self again and give yourself any piece of advice musically, what would be your piece of advice?
I don't know. Don't trust everybody. And, practice and have fun. That's it.
That's about as simple as you can put it. And I mean, once again, you guys, we have Ross on the show, Merch Kitchen. Go and check his stuff out. I know from every band that I have on here, and I'll even be asking other bands that I've had previously to go and check you out, because I know some bands are really in need of someone to deliver merch, and I'd be more than happy to give them your information. I love helping out people. So everyone out there, and also if your band's listening on here that haven't been on the show, or just people who would maybe like a cool t-shirt design, go check out Merch Kitchen. Again, links down below in the description box. We'll have all the links to where you can contact him. and as well as those bands, Bled to Submission, and Option Anxiety. We'll leave all the links down to their music below. I highly recommend that you go and listen to these bands. Ross, it was great having you on the show. You can come back anytime and talk about your business, or if you need anything business-wise or band-wise to plug, if you have any albums coming out or any shows coming up. Oh yeah, do you have any shows with any of these bands near in the Tennessee area coming up?
Yeah, we've got. There's a fest called Locals Only Fest. It's got a lot of really cool local bands. And both bands are actually playing that. So in addition to that, there's a few other ones, but I could not tell you the dates. I have no idea.
All right.
My friend that's booking the fest is going to be mad that I don't remember the date for that, but it's coming up. Locals Only Fest. It'll be cool.
Well, I'll tell you what. You can talk to him after this, and then you can send me the notification on the dates, and then I will impose on this screen right here. I'll impose the dates of your upcoming shows.
Cool. Sounds great.
Absolutely. And I mean, it was great having you on the show. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap it up here?
I think we covered it. I don't know. Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. I love talking to people, and you're the first person who has their own business too that I've talked to. I've loved doing that. I mean, it was really great getting to know. People struggle so much in businesses, but it's so great that people like you go out there and start their own business, because we need small businesses, or we need our own business owners. Otherwise, I mean, life would be just dull, and we'd all be doing our 9 to 5, like you said, basically factory work and just slugging through. So I mean, having people with the intuition like you in order to start your own business, it really is truly inspiring. And honestly, we wish you nothing but the best with your merchandise. And I will recommend all the bands that I have on here prior, and I'll even text some of the bands right after we're done here, because I know that they need someone. So again, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.